talk a little bit about prodigies. And I want to talk about prodigies in the context of a common tendency among people in a lack society like we're in. A common tendency of people is to say, if this happened, if this one thing happens, I'll be okay to do what I've always wanted to do with my life. If this thing happens. And in a economically lack-driven society, and that's how it's driven here, via economy, then that's the number one reason that we come up with. Why aren't you doing what you want? Or why aren't you doing what fulfills you? Or why aren't you doing your passion? Why not? So we point to something measurable. Now, to contrast that with prodigies, in a sense, are the only ones in this society, in this economically lack-driven, it's a lack via economy society. So the only ones of us that don't have the money always running out as our excuse for not doing what we want to be doing are the prodigies. The ones that at 3 years old are already playing piano, or 3, 4, 5, they're already whatever they're doing. At a very early age, they simply show immense talent for a particular thing. And inside of them, they don't have that thing that says, oh, well, if only this would have happened, then I could finally do what I want. They're doing, well, you don't know if they're doing what they want. Maybe they're not doing what they want. Many times parents push kids into something, like the Balls, I think their name were Ball. The parents pushed those kids, Alonzo Ball and whoever else, the basketball kids, they push them into it, and they get on them to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing as per becoming NBA players, and it works, but at the same time, there's a lot of control there to keep the kid on track. And if someone starts doing something at age 3, 4, 5, and then that continues on into their adulthood, there's no way the kid could say, yeah, I really want to be doing this with my life. It just is their life. It's like being born rich or being born poor. It's what your life is. people tend to stay in the same situation that they're born in, generally speaking. There are a few exceptions. It does happen, but for the most part, whatever circumstance you're born into, that's where you stay. Because it's comfortable for you. That's why Stockholm Syndrome exists. It's comfortable. If you've been experiencing pain and trauma all your life and someone all of a sudden takes it all away from you, you're going to be upset. And you're probably going to attack them for doing that. You're probably going to attack them. The question always comes down to, though, is how to move. How does one move without upsetting the balance too much? Is it possible to make movements, to make actual movements in the realm in whatever way, shape, or form without causing tsunamis? I was thinking earlier today about how our 3D linearly perceived reality here that seems to be moving forward in some sense is what you see with your eyes and your five senses, hear, touch, taste, all that. That's the surface of the ocean, the observable reality, the surface reality. They call it the surface for a reason. That would be funny if the Earth itself was actually like a giant head. But like the surface of this ocean, this ball, would be what's actually being manifest. And what's underneath the surface is everybody's mind. It's thoughts. It's not just mind. It's mind, emotions, spirit, all that. It's the ocean underneath the surface. Because whatever you see appearing here on the surface could have gone hundreds of other ways, thousands of ways. Anybody can walk in so many ways. You can treat other people in so many ways, and all of those potentialities comprise the ocean underneath. And so as you're walking through your day, or as you're talking to people, you sense underneath the surface other possibilities, and you can bring to the surface what you want. But it's so complex that, say you bring one thing and you try to compare it against another thing, it's so complex that it's just difficult to make changes. I always end up becoming like a kid that's just staring at dirt on the ground or something, because you can't. The actual complexity of the universe is untouchable with mind, and it's just impossible to touch it. It's impossible to manipulate, actually. And that's why I get so frustrated when other people try to manipulate. Especially me, but even when I see other people trying to manipulate other people, it's very frustrating because they're doing that thing where they're like, oh, I'm I'm controlling something here. Like I'm doing something in the universe. And that's a very sort of like selfish stance to take, being that the possibilities are endless in any given situation, and whenever you say this is the best way, you know, and you try to manipulate or control or force someone else to think that your opinion is correct, this is the best way, then it's like you're being disrespectful to the diversity and the complexity of life itself. That's why I get frustrated when people do that. Because I know it's not. Every situation, there are endless possibilities. In this situation, I'm sitting in the car. I'm going to do the same thing I always do. I'm going to go in there and grab something to drink or whatever I feel like. Something safe that's not, causing, all the people that are in the same vicinity to shit themselves. I could do that. I know how to do that too. But I respect their own little bubble that they're having. They're having their own little bubble, their own little temporal sealed little bubble that protects them from the extremely complexly diverse multiverse potentiality spectrum that exists just underneath the surface of this thing that we see here, that is just like nice and holding itself together, and the form is holding together, and the things are moving in pretty predictable patterns. And just below that, there's just like, like, it can't be controlled. And I'm not saying that control can't be implemented, I'm not saying that it can't, there's no possibility of attempting to control it. Of course, you can attempt to do anything you want. But I've never seen the existence itself controlled. Like when I finally came outside of like the initial mind being like the monkey mind, the one that just says this is correct, that's incorrect, that's good, that's bad, you should do this, and this with your life. When I got outside of that, when I finally found like what the present moment is, like what is this, when I finally found what that was, it's like I tried searching within that to find who was controlling it, or what was controlling it, or if something was controlling it. And I didn't ever find it. I never found like a little person inside of my body, or perhaps it's like I'm like a remote controlled being, like an avatar that some other being somewhere else is just sitting here like moving the control sticks. But I didn't find it here inside of myself. And to test the theory of someone else is controlling you from afar, just sit and be still and find out if some impulse comes to you to like do something. I don't do something unless I want to, and that wanting, like, where is that initial, like I was telling Aurora, impetus to action? Like, that's the thing that they want to control, the beings that want to control everything. They want to find what is that final thing inside of the living ones that makes them do something versus not do something. And the way that the conclusion that I finally came to is that it's not something that can be corralled. It never ever stays the same. Even the impetus to action never stays the same. So systems that rely on uniform expression and repetition and familiarity, they can't find the thing that they're trying to find, because like they're looking for it will become a part of it. And at the end of their little attempt, they're just going to be part of a play. They'll zoom out a little bit. They'll be like, oh, I was part of that thing, rather than trying to control this little like speck of light that's dancing around. I was actually part of the dancing with the light, and I didn't know it. I just thought I was doing something. Because if I could ask you right now, whoever's listening, watch yourself make a choice and try to find, like, try to corral that little thing inside of you, that whatever it is. I call it a dancing light, but I don't know exactly what it is. I just know that I can tell 100% sure if whatever the I is, the sense of self, is the one that's making choices, or if something else from outside is imposing some manipulative force. I just know it. There's not any question about it. So I would ask you, look inside yourself and find, how do you know that you're making choices? How do you know when you're going to actually, say, get up from a chair if you're sitting in the chair? I mean, know that without actually getting up. Like, know that beforehand. Know that while the thing is still in the potentiality stream, while the thing is still underneath the surface. How do you know that? And, like, looking at that particular aspect of being, or of manifesting, that's someone's having a big gulp. Anyway, see, these guys are they're having a nice conversation. They're just talking about whatever they're talking about. It's nothing special, but they're familiar with each other. They're talking about bridges. Anyway, back to the exercise I was recommending. Just sit down somewhere. Sit down, or bring your attention back into the present. You're going to be somewhere. Your body will be somewhere. Your mind usually gets you on this mental train track, so, like, you don't notice that you're existing and whatnot. But bring yourself back. Bring it back to center. And try and find out, like, he'd park in the trailer park before he'd park there. This always happens. Not always, sometimes. Craving a little treat? 3 for 99 cents, baked daily. Try to find it. Try to find when you will actually get up. I mean, like, go into the minutia of it. If you have inside your mind a thought, I want to get up off of this chair, or I want to go do something, find if that space where, or the explosion, or whatever it is that actually gets your ass up off the chair, find out if that is some quantifiable, controllable thing or not. Anyway, gotta go. Take care, people.